The seduction of knowledge. Myra Adesanya was a woman of formidable intellect and unshakable principles. At 42, she had carved out a respected niche for herself as a professor of African literature at the University of Lagos. Her lectures were legendary, her insights profound, and her dedication to her students unwavering. She was the kind of academic who believed in the transformative power of education, and she wore her passion for knowledge like a second skin. Her life was orderly, predictable, and fulfilling, or so she thought. William's ease was everything Myra was not. At 24, he was brash, ambitious, and unapologetically bold. He had enrolled in her class with a reputation that preceded him, a charming troublemaker with a knack for getting what he wanted. His presence was magnetic, his smile disarming, and his confidence bordering on arrogance. From the moment he walked into her lecture hall, Myra felt an inexplicable pull toward him, a dangerous curiosity that she quickly dismissed as professional interest. But Williams had other plans. He had set his sights on her, not just as a professor, but as a woman. And Williams always got what he wanted. The University of Lagos campus was a vibrant tapestry of life, buzzing with the energy of young minds eager to learn and explore. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers and the distant hum of city life. Myra loved this place, it was her sanctuary, her kingdom. She strode through the corridors with purpose, her heels clicking against the polished floors, her mind already racing ahead to the day's lectures. She had a class on postcolonial African literature, and she was eager to dive into the works of Chinua Achebe and Ngg Wa Thiong'o with her students. Williams was waiting for her outside the lecture hall, leaning casually against the wall with a book in hand. He looked up as she approached, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her pause. "Good morning, Professor Adesanya," he said, his voice smooth and deliberate. Myra nodded, her professional mask firmly in place. "Good morning, Williams. Are you ready for today's discussion?" He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent a shiver down her spine. "Always ready for your class, Professor." The lecture began as it always did, with Myra commanding the room with her knowledge and passion. She spoke of Achebe's Things Fall Apart, dissecting the themes of colonialism and cultural identity with precision. But as she spoke, she couldn't help but notice William's gaze fixed on her, unwavering and intense. It was as if he was hanging onto her every word, not just as a student, but as a man captivated. She tried to ignore it, to focus on the lesson, but the weight of his attention was undeniable. After class, Williams lingered behind, waiting for the other students to file out before approaching her desk. "Professor, I was wondering if I could discuss something with you," he said, his tone respectful, but laced with something else, something that made her heart race. Myra hesitated, her instincts warning her to maintain boundaries, but curiosity got the better of her. "Of course, Williams. What's on your mind?" He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I've been thinking a lot about your lecture today. About how the characters in Achebe's work are so human. Flawed, complex, driven by desires they can't always control." Myra frowned, sensing the double meaning in his words. "Literature has a way of reflecting our own humanity," she replied carefully. Williams smiled, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Exactly. And sometimes, those desires can't be ignored, no matter how hard we try." Myra felt a flush of heat rise to her cheeks, her mind racing to process his words. Was he flirting with her? No, that couldn't be. She was his professor, and he was just a student. But the way he looked at her, the way he spoke, it was as if he was challenging her, daring her to cross a line she had never even considered. She cleared her throat, forcing herself to remain composed. "Williams, if you have any questions about the material, I'd be happy to discuss them during office hours." He nodded, his smile never wavering. "I'll take you up on that offer, Professor. See you then." He turned and walked away, leaving Myra standing there, her heart pounding and her mind in turmoil. She told herself it was nothing, just a young man's harmless flirtation. But deep down, she knew that something had shifted, something dangerous and exhilarating. And she wasn't sure if she had the strength to resist it. The days that followed were a blur of tension and temptation. Williams became a constant presence in her life, showing up at her office hours, engaging her in debates, and always looking at her with that same intensity. Myra tried to maintain her professionalism, to keep the boundaries firmly in place, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. There was something about him, his confidence, his intelligence, his raw, unapologetic desire, that drew her in like a moth to a flame. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the campus grew quiet, Myra found herself alone in her office, grading papers. The door creaked open, and she looked up to see William standing there, a bottle of wine in hand. "Professor, I thought you might need a break," he said, his voice soft but insistent. Myra's heart skipped a beat, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. "Williams, this is highly inappropriate," she said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to sound firm. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Maybe. But sometimes, the most meaningful connections are the ones that defy convention." He set the bottle on her desk, his eyes never leaving hers. Myra felt a surge of panic and desire, her resolve crumbling under the weight of his gaze. "This is wrong," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Williams reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. "Is it? Or is it just inevitable?" In that moment, Myra's carefully constructed world began to unravel. She knew she should stop him, should push him away and reaffirm the boundaries that kept her life in order. But as his lips met hers, all rational thought fled, replaced by a hunger she had long suppressed. The wine was forgotten, the papers abandoned, as they gave in to the passion that had been simmering between them for weeks. Later, as they lay together in the dim light of her office, Myra felt a wave of guilt and fear wash over her. What had she done? She had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, jeopardizing her career, her reputation, everything she had worked so hard to build. But as Williams traced lazy circles on her skin, his touch both soothing and electrifying, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. For the first time in years, she felt alive, truly alive. And so began a dangerous dance, a secret affair that threatened to consume them both. In the shadows of the university, amidst the dusty shelves of the library and the quiet corners of the campus, they found solace in each other's arms. But as the days turned into weeks, the weight of their secret began to take its toll. Whispers followed them, rumors spread, and the walls of their carefully constructed world began to close in. Myra knew that their time together was borrowed, that the consequences of their actions would eventually catch up to them. But for now, she allowed herself to be swept away by the passion and the danger, by the thrill of the forbidden. And as she lay in William's arms, she couldn't help but wonder if it was all worth it, if the price she would eventually pay was a fair trade for the moments of bliss they shared. But in the back of her mind, a voice whispered a warning, a reminder that every choice has consequences, and that some lines, once crossed, can never be uncrossed. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Myra began to realize that the seduction of knowledge was nothing compared to the seduction of desire, and that the latter could be far more dangerous. As the weeks turned into months, Myra and William's affair deepened, becoming more intense and more reckless. They met in secret, stealing moments whenever they could, early mornings in her office, late nights in his apartment, stolen kisses in the library stacks. The thrill of their forbidden love was intoxicating, but it came with a price. Myra's once orderly life began to unravel, her focus slipping, her priorities shifting. She found herself distracted during lectures, her mind wandering to thoughts of Williams when it should have been on her students. The rumors began to spread, as they always do in a place as small and interconnected as a university campus. Whispers followed Myra wherever she went, and she could feel the weight of judgmental eyes on her back. Her colleagues, once respectful and admiring, now regarded her with suspicion and disdain. She tried to brush it off, to convince herself that it didn't matter, but the truth was that it did. Her reputation, her career, everything she had worked so hard to build, it was all at risk. Williams, for his part, seemed unfazed by the rumors. If anything, he seemed to revel in the attention, his confidence only growing as the whispers spread. He was young, after all, and to him, the affair was just another adventure, another conquest. But for Myra, it was something more, something deeper, and more complicated. She had fallen for him, hard, and the thought of losing him was unbearable. One evening, as they lay together in his apartment, Myra finally broached the subject that had been weighing on her mind. "Williams, we can't keep doing this," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "The rumors, the whispers, they are getting worse. If anyone finds out, it could ruin me." Williams turned to her, his expression serious for once. "Myra, I don't care about the rumors. I care about you. About us. We are not doing anything wrong. We are just two people who found each other in a world that doesn't understand us." Myra shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "You don't understand. This isn't just about us. It's about my career, my reputation, everything I've worked for. I can't lose that, Williams. I can't." Williams reached out, his hand gently cupping her face. "You won't lose anything, Myra. I promise. We'll be careful. We'll keep it secret. No one has to know." Myra wanted to believe him, to trust that they could keep their affair hidden, but deep down, she knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. And when it did, there would be no going back. The inevitable happened on a rainy afternoon in Lagos. Myra was in her office, grading papers, when there was a knock on the door. She looked up, expecting to see Williams, but instead, it was the dean of the faculty, Dr. Adebayo. His expression was grave, and Myra's heart sank as she realized why he was there. "Myra, we need to talk," Dr. Adebayo said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "There have been allegations about you and one of your students." Myra felt the blood drain from her face, her mind racing with panic. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but even as she said the words, she knew they were futile. Dr. Adebayo sighed, shaking his head. "Myra, this is serious. If these allegations are true, it could mean the end of your career here. You need to tell me the truth." Myra opened her mouth to deny it, to protest her innocence, but the words caught in her throat. She couldn't lie, not anymore. The weight of her guilt was too heavy, too overwhelming. She bowed her head, tears streaming down her face. "It's true," she whispered. "It's all true." Dr. Adebayo's expression softened, but there was no mistaking the disappointment in his eyes. "Myra, I'm sorry. But you know what this means. We'll have to launch an investigation. And if the allegations are proven, well, you know what will happen." Myra nodded, her heart breaking as she realized the full extent of what she had done. Her career, her reputation, everything she had worked for, it was all gone. And for what? A fleeting moment of passion, a dangerous affair that had consumed her. As Dr. Adebayo left her office, Myra sat there, staring at the wall, her mind numb with shock and regret. She had crossed a line, and there was no going back. The seduction of knowledge, the thrill of desire, it had all led her to this moment, to this devastating realization. And as the rain poured down outside, Myra knew that her life would never be the same again. The end. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos.